I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, typing this out because I guess I need to get it off my chest. My name's James, and I've been married to Lisa for about 5 years now. We seemed fine, no major fights, no obvious signs of trouble. At least I thought so. She's a bitchy girl, always sharp-tongued, quick to dismiss anyone she doesn't like, but she's also charming when she wants to be. She's the kind of woman who acts like she's got everything under control, and honestly, I thought that was true, until recently. The first real cracks started showing a couple of months ago. She began spending more time out of the house, claiming work was stressful, or she just needed me time. I noticed she was more irritable, snapping at me over small things. She'd come home late, sometimes smelling different, like she'd been somewhere she shouldn't have been. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just stressed, maybe she was having an affair, but I didn't have concrete proof. Not yet. What really pushed me over the edge was the night I decided to surprise her. I'd been working late and I wanted to come home early, catch her off guard. I thought maybe we could have dinner together, reconnect a little. I got home around 7:30, feeling pretty good about the idea. As I unlocked the door, I noticed her car wasn't in the driveway. Odd, because she usually was home by then. I called her, no answer. I checked her phone, but she had it on silent and was ignoring my texts. A strange feeling crept in, something was off. Then I remembered something I had seen on her laptop a few days ago, a series of emails from some guy named Mark. She'd been talking to him a lot lately. Flirty messages, plans to meet up, that kind of thing. I confronted her about it that same night. She swore she was just helping him with some work stuff, that it was all innocent. Yeah, right, I knew better. The girl was a bitch, sure, but she wasn't stupid enough to get caught. That night, I decided to do a little digging of my own. I started paying closer attention, watching her routines. And that's when I found the logs. Strange entries from her flotation tank sessions. I'd gotten her that sensory deprivation chamber as a gift for our anniversary because I thought it would help her relax. The logs showed something disturbing. At times when she was supposed to be alone, the chamber was being used simultaneously with someone else. Someone who clearly wasn't me. I could tell because the logs indicated external stimulation, sounds, even light flashes that shouldn't be there during her solo sessions. That's when I realized she wasn't just fooling around with Mark. She was cheating on me in the most twisted way possible. She'd been sneaking around with her technician, a guy named Ethan, who's supposed to be an expert in sensory isolation therapy, but in reality turned out to be the guy she was screwing behind my back. I felt sick. I mean, I knew she was a manipulative brat, but this was on another level. I stayed up all night reading those logs, trying to piece it together. The worst part was knowing she'd lied to my face, told me she was just stressed, just tired, just busy. Meanwhile, she was in a secret affair, and not just any affair. One that involved my own therapy equipment, my own sanctuary, being used to stimulate each other without me knowing. She turned the thing I bought to help her relax into a tool for betrayal. I thought I'd be calm, rational, but all I felt was rage. How could she do this? How could she betray me like that in my own house, in the one place I thought was ours? I was furious. I wanted to tear her apart, but I also felt a crushing sadness. I was hit with this wave of disbelief. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd been lying, cheating, sneaking around with some guy while I tried to be the good husband. It felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The betrayal was raw, and I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. I needed a plan because I wasn't just going to accuse her without proof. I wanted to catch her dead to rights. That's where I am now, trying to figure out what to do next. Do I just confront her outright? Do I gather more evidence? Do I blow everything up or try to salvage what's left of this mess? I don't even know anymore. All I know is that I never thought she'd do something like this, and now I'm left staring at the wreckage of what I thought was a good marriage, wondering how the hell I got here. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was racing, replaying everything I'd uncovered the night before. The logs, her sneaky behavior, the way she lied so effortlessly during our conversations. I knew I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I had to have answers, had to see if she'd slip up again, or better yet, if I could catch her red-handed. I decided my first move was to get more concrete proof. I couldn't just confront her based on logs and gut feelings. I needed to see her in the act, or at least get undeniable evidence. So I started planning my next steps carefully. I knew she was scheduled for her next flotation session later that day. It was usually during her me time, a time she claimed to be decompressing alone, but I'd seen enough to know that wasn't true anymore. I had to be there hidden, or at least close enough to see what was really going on. I borrowed her phone when she wasn't looking. My heart was pounding as I scrolled through her messages, her recent calls, her calendar. Nothing too explicit yet, but I could see she was still lying, still trying to cover her tracks. I turned my attention toward her schedule, making sure I wouldn't miss her session. I decided I'd go to the location she used for her sessions, the wellness center downtown. I wanted to see if Ethan was there or anyone else. Timing was critical, so I made sure I was parked across the street in my car about 15 minutes before her appointment. I watched her walk in, looking slightly tense, her bitchy smirk in place. She didn't seem worried, more like she was annoyed I was there. That irritated me even more. I sat in silence, watching her go into the chamber, and kept a close eye on the logs from my phone. What I saw next, I'll never forget. Her chamber door shut, and within a few minutes the logs indicated external stimulation. I could hear faint sounds from outside, muffled but unmistakably human. I couldn't tell who, but I knew it wasn't her alone. I watched as the time ticked by. Then out of nowhere, the door to her chamber opened. I was stunned. Ethan stepped out, adjusting his shirt, looking casual, like he'd just been there for a routine session. He left quickly, and she followed a few minutes later, looking irritated but composed. I felt like my insides were exploding. She'd lied to me. She'd been sneaking around behind my back, using my therapy equipment not as a tool for relaxation, but as a cover for what I now knew was infidelity. I'd been played, manipulated, tricked into thinking she was just stressed, and I'd been blind to all of it because I loved her, or at least I wanted to. That moment, watching her walk out of that place, I realized that everything I'd believed about us was shattered. I don't think I'd ever been so angry and heartbroken at the same time. I kept telling myself I had to stay calm, to not lose control, but inside I was boiling. She'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. I felt like I'd been kicked in the stomach again and again. I had options. I could confront her right then and there. I could follow her, see if she met up with Ethan again, or I could gather more evidence, maybe even set a trap. I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to know how deep this betrayal went, how long she'd been lying to me, and what she'd said behind my back. Driving home, I kept thinking about what I'd do next. Part of me wanted to storm into the house, demand answers, and maybe tear her apart with words. But I also knew that wouldn't get me anywhere. I needed to be strategic. The truth was, I was hurt deeply, and I felt betrayed at every level. My trust was gone. My wife, the woman I'd married, had been lying to me about her feelings, her whereabouts, even her own pleasure. I decided I'd follow her again that night, maybe catch her with Ethan or whoever else she was seeing. I couldn't just sit back and wait for her to come home. I had to see her in the act. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I wanted to expose her, make her see how badly she'd screwed me over. I didn't know what I'd do after that, but I knew I couldn't stay quiet. Not anymore. Not after what I'd seen and what I'd uncovered. That evening, I parked a little down the street from her usual hangout spot, watching her walk in again. She was wearing that bitchy smirk, acting like she didn't have a care in the world. And I swear part of me hoped she'd slip up again, that she'd get careless and I'd finally have her trapped. But deep down, I already knew the damage was done. She had been cheating on me, lying to my face, all while pretending everything was fine. And now I had proof more than enough. The question was, what would I do with it? That night I stayed in my car, watching her go into the wellness center again. I was tense, my muscles tight, fists clenched. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to keep doing this. She was so bitchy about everything. Every little thing she didn't like, she'd lash out. But when it came to hiding her affairs, she was a pro. It made me sick to think I'd been nothing more than a fool for trusting her. I saw Ethan arrive shortly after her, the same confident swagger he had earlier. He was in no rush, acting like he just had a casual meeting. I was seething. I didn't want to wait any longer. I'd already seen enough to confirm my worst suspicions. I decided that enough was enough. I slipped out of my car, stealthily making my way toward the back entrance of the wellness center. I had to get inside or at least find a way to see what was happening. As I crept around the back, I heard muffled voices. My heart pounded. I managed to find an open window just slightly cracked. I peeked inside. There they were, Ethan and Lisa, sitting close together in what looked like a private lounge area attached to the therapy room. They were laughing, talking intimately, almost like they were in their own little bubble. I could see her leaning toward him, her bitchy smirk softened, maybe flirtatiously. It was a sickening sight. I pushed my way inside quietly, trying not to be seen. I was furious, but I also knew I had to stay calm. I pulled out my phone, ready to record or take pictures if I needed. The last thing I wanted was to blow this up prematurely, but I also wanted undeniable proof. As I was about to step closer, Lisa looked up and saw me. Her eyes widened in shock, and she immediately tried to cover her face with her hand. "James," she stammered, eyes darting around. "What the hell are you doing here?" Ethan looked equally surprised but quickly composed himself. "Hey man," he said casually, like this was just a casual meetup. "We're just talking, nothing big." I didn't say anything at first. I just stared, rage boiling inside me. My voice was low, but I could feel it tremble with anger. "You've been lying to me, using my therapy equipment to screw around with this guy. You've been sneaking around behind my back, and I've had enough." She scoffed, that bitchy attitude flaring up again. "Oh please, James, you're overreacting. I was just talking to Ethan. We're friends, it's nothing serious." I shook my head, disgusted. "Friends? That's a load of bullshit. I've seen your logs, I know what you've been doing. You've been cheating on me with him in my own house, in my own sanctuary. You've been lying to me for weeks." Her expression twisted into one of pure disdain. "You're crazy. All of this is just your paranoid delusions. Ethan's just helping me relax, like I said. You're making a big deal out of nothing." I felt a cold wave of rage wash over me. "Nothing. You've been screwing around with him during my scheduled rest periods in the flotation tank. That's not nothing. That's betrayal. That's lying and cheating in the worst way. I trusted you, Lisa. I thought we had something real, but I guess I was naive." She rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. God, why do you have to blow everything out of proportion? Just because I spend some time talking to someone doesn't mean I'm cheating. You're always suspicious, always paranoid. Maybe you're the one with issues." That was the final straw. I felt the blood rush to my head. "Paranoid? No, Lisa, I'm just done being blind. I've seen enough. This is over, and if I'm being honest, I don't even want to look at you right now. You're a liar, a cheat, and a manipulative bitch. I trusted you with my life, and you threw it all away for a quick fuck with this asshole." She sneered at me, her tone icy. "You'll regret this, James. You're overreacting. You're just mad because I don't want to be controlled by your insecurities." I had heard enough. I turned around and stormed out, my mind racing. I knew I had to get out of there fast before she managed to spin some bullshit story to cover her tracks. As I left, I could see her face twisted with anger and defiance. Ethan just watched silently, not even trying to stop me. Back in my car, I sat there for a moment, pulling my phone out to record what I'd just seen. I needed proof, undeniable evidence that she was cheating and lying. The pictures, the recordings, they'd be my leverage. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I felt a strange mixture of relief and devastation. Relief because I finally saw the truth, and devastation because it was worse than I imagined. I'd trusted her for so long, and now all that trust was shattered. The worst part, I knew this was only the beginning. The damage was done, and I was going to have to decide whether I could forgive or if I needed to cut her out of my life completely. But right now, I just sat there, staring at her face in my mind, knowing I'd have to face her again soon. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Ethan, heard her laughter, saw her smug expression when she thought she was getting away with everything. I kept replaying that night in my head, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next. Do I confront her again? Do I cut everything off and walk away? Honestly, I was torn, but deep down, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I spent hours going over every detail I could remember, every conversation, every suspicious moment. I even dragged out the logs I'd downloaded, poring over every line of data from her flotation sessions. The more I looked, the more clear it became that she'd been lying to me for weeks. She'd been sneaking around with Ethan during my scheduled solitary time, using my own equipment, my own safe space to cheat on me. It was sickening. I felt betrayed at a level I'd never experienced before. I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I had to decide how to handle this. Part of me wanted to go straight to her with everything, rip her apart, tell her how much I knew. But I also realized that might just make things worse. Lisa, her name's Lisa, has a way of twisting everything, making herself the victim. I had no doubt she'd deny everything, call me crazy, and try to manipulate me into doubting my own sanity. So I decided I'd set a trap. I still had the recordings and photos from the night I caught her in the act. I figured if I could catch her again, or even better, catch her in the act with Ethan, I'd have irrefutable proof. I started planning my next move carefully. I needed her to slip up again, or I needed a way to catch her red-handed. When she thought I wasn't looking, that's when I remembered something: her phone. She always kept it with her, and she was obsessive about it. I decided to install a hidden app that would alert me if she accessed certain files or deleted anything. I also set up a little GPS tracker on her car, just in case she tried to go somewhere I didn't expect. I felt like a damn detective, but I needed to catch her in the act, or, at the very least, get more evidence. One evening I got a message from the tracker. Her car was parked at the wellness center again. I knew she was planning to go back, probably to meet Ethan or whoever else she was seeing. I realized I couldn't wait around anymore. I had to go in myself, undercover, with a plan to confront her, or at least see what she was up to. I parked a few blocks away, watching her walk into the same building. Heart pounding, I slipped inside from a back entrance I'd scoped out earlier. It was quiet, almost eerily so. I made my way to a concealed spot near the lounge area. I pulled out, my phone ready to record again. I was determined to catch her in the act, or at least get a clear view of what she was doing. And then it happened. The door to her chamber opened and Ethan stepped out again, looking casual as ever. She followed a few minutes later, wearing that same bitchy smirk that I now hated. I kept my camera steady, recording every second. I was ready to expose her, finally, once and for all. But what I saw next was even worse than I expected. She turned away from Ethan, walking toward the lounge area where I was hiding. She looked around as if sensing she was being watched. I froze, heart racing. Then she looked directly toward me, her eyes narrowing with that familiar bitchy glare. "James," she called out, voice dripping with false innocence. "What are you doing here?" I didn't respond. I just kept recording. My hands trembled, but I kept steady. Ethan slipped away quietly, probably realizing I was there. Lisa's face twisted into a mixture of anger and contempt. She knew I'd seen everything and she didn't care. "You're so paranoid," she snapped. "You don't have any proof of anything, just some stupid logs and a few recordings. Why are you losing your mind over a little conversation? I'm just talking with Ethan, nothing more." I finally found my voice, cold and hard. "You're lying. I saw you come in with him. I saw you walk out of the chamber with him. You've been sneaking around, cheating behind my back, using my equipment, lying to my face. And I've got the proof right here." I held up my phone, showing her the recordings. "You thought you could get away with it, huh?" Her smirk just grew wider, her bitchiness on full display. "You're overreacting," she sneered. "You always do. You're so insecure, so controlling. Maybe it's time you face the truth. You're not enough for me. I needed someone who could handle me, who could satisfy me. Ethan does that, you don't." That was it. I'd been holding everything in, and now I just snapped. I told her she was a manipulative, unfaithful bitch, and I was done with her lies. I told her she'd ruined everything, that I didn't want her anymore, and that I was done being played. She looked at me with pure disdain, that fake smirk still plastered on her face. "Good luck," she said coldly. "You'll regret this." I turned and walked out, my mind spinning. I had everything I needed, proof, evidence, yet I felt emptier than ever. The woman I'd loved, the woman I married, had turned out to be a lying, cheating monster. And now I had to decide what to do next. I knew I couldn't stay with her. Not after this. As I drove home that night, I thought about everything. about trust betrayal and how naive I'd been to think everything was fine. I'd been so blind. But now I saw her true face, and I knew I'd never want to see her again. I just had to figure out how to put this all behind me and rebuild my life. The shock hit me like a freight train. I'd thought I was prepared for everything, thought I'd seen it all, yet nothing had prepared me for the cold, brutal truth of what I'd uncovered. I spent the next few days in a fog, trying to process what had happened, trying to figure out what my next move was. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Ethan, heard the lies, felt the betrayal. It was like a punch to the gut every single time. I knew I couldn't stay in that house. Not after what I'd seen, not after her lying, her sneaking around behind my back. The thought of her continuing to manipulate the situation just made me angrier. I decided I had to leave, at least for a while, to clear my head, get some space between us. I packed a bag and left late that night, not even telling her I was going. I needed to think, to plan, to figure out what I was really going to do about her. I stayed with a friend for a few days, someone I could trust, someone who knew the whole story. I told him everything, pouring out my heartbreak, my anger, my frustration. He listened quietly, then told me I had to confront her, no matter how much it hurt. But I knew that wasn't going to be easy. Lisa was manipulative. She'd spin everything around, make me doubt myself, try to turn me into the villain. Honestly, I didn't trust myself to have that conversation sober, clear-headed. In those days, I took a long, hard look at what I had. I realized that I'd been in this relationship for a long time, and I'd always been the one trying to hold everything together. I'd been patient, understanding, trying to be a good husband. But she'd taken everything for granted, crossing lines I never thought she would. The trust I'd built was shattered, and I knew I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. I reached a point where I made a decision. I was going to confront her face to face, but I was going to do it on my terms. I set up a time to come back home, but I also prepared what I'd say. I wanted her to know I wasn't playing anymore. I'd gathered all the evidence, all the recordings, all the logs. I was ready to lay everything out all at once. I wanted her to see how much I knew, how deeply she'd betrayed me. When I finally moved back into the house, I was tense. Every step felt heavy, like I was carrying a burden I couldn't drop. I knew she'd be waiting for me, probably trying to deny everything or spin some sob story. But I was done playing her game. I had my proof and I was ready to use it. The confrontation happened one evening. I found her in the living room, sipping her wine, that fake bitchy smirk on her face again. She looked at me as if she already knew what I was going to say. I didn't waste time. I pulled out my phone, played the recordings, her voice, her laughing with Ethan, her lies. I showed her the logs, the times she'd been sneaking around, the evidence of her cheating. Her face went pale for a second, then she threw up her hands. "You're nuts," she spat. "You're just jealous because I don't want to be controlled. You're paranoid. You're imagining things." I shook my head. "No, Lisa, I've seen enough. You've been lying to my face for weeks. You've been screwing around with Ethan, using my own equipment to hide it. And you've been manipulating me, making me doubt myself. I trusted you and you shit all over that trust. How could you do this?" She started crying, fake tears welling up, but I saw through it. "You don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think. Ethan's just a friend. I was stressed and he's been helping me relax. I never meant to hurt you, I swear. You're just overreacting." That was the moment I realized how deep her lies ran. She could cry, twist words, deny everything, but I had the proof. I told her I was done, that I couldn't stay married to a woman who thought she could cheat and lie without consequences. She yelled, called me controlling, said I was overreacting, but I didn't care. I'd made up my mind. I told her that I was leaving and that I wanted her to know I knew everything. She looked stunned for a moment, then her bitchy veneer returned. "Fine," she snapped. "Go if you want, but you'll regret this. You're just a jealous, insecure guy." I didn't argue. I just packed my things that night and walked out, leaving her sitting there, spinning her false stories. I knew I'd be better off without her. Part of me still felt like I was losing something important, like I was letting go of the woman I thought I knew, but deep down I knew the truth. She was a liar, a cheat, and an untrustworthy bitch who had betrayed everything I believed in. Now I'm trying to rebuild, trying to trust myself again after all this. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing for sure. I'll never let someone manipulate me like that again. And I hope anyone reading this in a similar situation remembers. Trust your instincts, gather your proof, and don't let anyone get away with betrayal. Because once it's out there, you can't unsee it, and you definitely can't undo the damage. After I walked out that night, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Honestly, I was relieved I finally knew the truth. No more lies, no more pretending. For years, I've been blind to who Lisa really was, and now I saw her for what she truly was. A manipulative, selfish bitch who used my trust as a tool for her own selfish needs. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't even know how to process it at first. I kept replaying everything. The lies, the sneaking around, her fake tears, her smug smirk when I finally confronted her. It all seemed so clear now. In the days that followed, I made the decision to cut her out completely. I changed my locks, deleted her number, blocked her on social media. I needed space, time to heal, to reflect, to figure out how to move forward without her poison clouding my life. The house felt empty, colder somehow, without her bitchy attitude and manipulative smirk. But I knew it was better this way. I had to get rid of the toxicity she brought into my life. I also took steps to protect myself legally and financially. I talked to a lawyer, gathered the evidence I had, screenshots, recordings, logs, and made sure I was prepared if she tried to manipulate the situation further. I wasn't about to let her spin some sob story and tear me down. I was done playing her game. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity. I understood that I deserved better, that I didn't need her chaos in my life. As I moved on, I realized how much this experience had changed me. I became more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of the importance of trust and honesty. I'd always believed love was about loyalty and respect, but I'd learned the hard way that some people are just looking out for themselves, no matter how much they pretend otherwise. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also know that sometimes you have to go through this kind of pain to really understand what you're worth. Now I work on rebuilding my life piece by piece. I've started going to therapy, trying to process everything. I still feel hurt, anger, sadness, betrayal, but I also feel stronger. I know now that I can survive this, that I can move past her lies and manipulations. So if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your instincts. When something doesn't feel right, dig deeper. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much someone tries to spin their lies. Gather evidence, keep your composure, and do what's best for yourself. Because in the end, you're the only one who truly has your back. And no matter how much you love someone, they shouldn't make you feel like you're walking on eggshells or questioning everything. I've learned that betrayal leaves scars, but it also teaches you resilience. You find out who you really are when everything's falling apart. And sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away, no matter how complicated or messy it gets. The truth hurts, but in the end, it sets you free.